Welcome to another week, another episode of All at All Costs. And this week we have Timi, our Premier League Academy scout in the building. Welcome, Timi.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good. And alongside Timi, of course, we have our esteemed panelists, Dan, aka Just the Dad, and Deji's first, aka Van Helsing, aka the Genius, aka the Bundler. I'm going to get another AKA just to extend that. Like
my name is getting a bit too. My name has been extended over the past couple of weeks. What a long intro. No,
yeah. I'm sure there's another one that I don't know about there. But listen, guys, it's the All at All Cost podcast. You know what it is. So please like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, hit the notification and leave a comment. And if you're listening on the audio feed, you know what to do. A 5-star rating, because we only give you 5-star content, and a like and a follow will be grand. Thank you very much. We're going to get straight into it this week because we don't have the man of the moment, Timi, for long. He has a lot of work to do. But as we do very quickly, we always check in on our brethren, so we are going to do that very quickly. Deji, how did you get on in the Festival Cup this week? Because I know you've been trending downwards. Is there some positive news?
Yeah, no, it was a rough one today. The boys got the result, 3-2 win. The opposition did well, tough conditions. But look, at the moment, it's not about being pretty. It's about getting the results. We got the result and we move on.
Okay, good. Points on the board.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Dan, aka Just the Dad, I know there was a man of the match performance, I believe. Do you want to tell us more?
Yeah. Big K, little K, super K. He pulled it out. He had a clean sheet today, and they won 2-0. It was good for him. It was a good weekend of personal development, ups, mistakes, great saves, errors. But it's all good learning. That's all learning. So it was a good week, a good start to the week for him.
As long as we're trending up, that's what it's about, right?
100%.
Good. I actually went along to see the Old Thigh today. My son wanted to see his old team, and they were also in the same group of death as Deji's team, and they pulled the result at the back, which was good. OC, good timing. How's your weekend been? And welcome.
Yeah, sorry, I was sitting on the wrong link for 10 minutes. Weekend's been decent, The boys, they had a derby today, Billericay derby. They drew their second game. 2-0 up, so probably should have closed the game out. But listen, that's cup football, and listen, my legs are aching, So yesterday, my boy, I took him out for first park run. Those Vitality park runs that are across the country. We did it yesterday, and listen, I was talking smoke. I was like, listen, I'm going to beat you. This. And then we got about 200 meters into the race. I was like, listen, I've got to run my own race, man, because this is off. So he done his first 5K and he smashed it like under 28 minutes. My time was less great. I came in about 4 minutes after him, and listen, my quads are aching, my hamstrings are aching, my shoulders are aching. So I bought myself some running shoes, and listen, I'm gonna get out there, man.
Well, now you've learned your lesson. I think he's coming to the age where you've got to stop talking smoke to your son, because it sounds like he's ready to go. So bear that in mind.
Short distance, I've got him in it, but now I need to increase the stamina so that.
But there's no 10-meter races anymore. Yeah. Timi, how are you doing? How's your weekend been? Sounds like it's been a busy one.
I'm good. I'm okay, thank you. It's been a busy one. Very busy weekend. Obviously, with my job, weekends is pretty much the most hectic through the week. Trying to get to boys' games and girls' games. Done about 6 games this weekend.
Impressive.
So, but then again, with the 6 games, it's not just, I might not finish all the 6 games, but, you're sort of going in between different games.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you might have some games next to you in the same playing field, so that kind of helps a little bit. But it's the reports and the admin work after that, before that, speaking to parents or coaches, trying to get details and contact. Pretty hectic.
Okay, but that's the job you signed up for, and that's the job you love, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's one of those jobs. If you don't love it, you wouldn't have the will to do it continuously. Obviously, as you know, like football is a high pressure environment. Straight from first team through filters through to the academy. So performance, results, expectations, you got to fulfill and play your part in there. So if you don't love it, it's definitely not something you'd be able to do long term.
Yeah, 100% agreed. So, Timmy, you're our Premier League Academy Scout on the pod. This is a new series of ours. We're going to call this one Scouts Corner. We're going to find out a little bit more about you. You're obviously not from London with that accent I'm detecting. Bit more about your journey, how you got to where you got to, and then I'm going to be honest with you. Everybody just wants to know how to get their child into an academy, whether that be boy, girl, or indifferent. They just want to know. So we're going to change up this week. Normally, this is a bit more of a conversation. I think you're just going to get questions fired at you. So be prepared. But
Yeah,
over
sure.
to you. Just let us know your background, football, why you love it so much, and how you ended up where you were, or where you are, I should say.
Background, I'll touch on the accent quickly. So I was actually raised in London. I was
Okay.
raised in Tottenham, so I support Spurs, unfortunately.
Okay.
And I moved to Manchester for
Wait, so sorry,
young.
isn't that controversial right about now?
Well,
Like,
it is. It
a bit
is.
topical, isn't it? There's a
Yeah.
scout I saw or heard who's actually now at Spurs. I don't know if he still is. Said he can't let the badge touch his skin. So you be careful over there. Don't get yourself in trouble.
I think I saw him today.
Did you?
Yeah, that kind of went viral very quick. Obviously it's just I feel obviously he was just bantering with it, but obviously it's kind of gone down the wrong or come out the wrong way, I suppose. But it's just one of those things again with the job. When you sign your contract and stuff, you'd have your communications policy in terms of how you speak, meet, and obviously like media present yourself and stuff. So, something that could easily be banter, and you've seen it in football before, where it just all of a sudden it goes against you massively.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now going back to what I was saying, so yeah, lived in Manchester for a little bit. That is kind of where my sort of coaching and scouting in the professional environment kind of started for me. But before then, I was raised in Tottenham, playing football, grassroots, like anyone else. Everyone has a dream to be a footballer, right? Yeah, so from grassroots, I had trials at a couple clubs when I was younger. Nothing came from that. I done the Spurs development program, the education program. So I was with Spurs for a little bit. Again, nothing's come out from that. The Nike Academy. Do any of you remember the Nike Academy?
Yeah.
You remember it? Yeah, vaguely.
Right.
So that was a thing back in the day, which was run by Jimmy Gillingham. I think he's at Forest now or Watford, something like that. He heads up player development there. But yes, I was in that as well for a little bit. I was a goalkeeper. It's funny because on one of those trials, I was at QPR's training ground, and I ended up playing as a striker. I had a whole different name. My name was Da Costa or something like that. So honestly, it was crazy. But yeah, so that's my journey in football in terms of playing, and then finished off playing semi-pro. Played at Barking and Thurrock. So played at a decent level. And then sort of retired. I suppose retired at 21 or 22, I think it was. And yeah, moved up to Manchester, fell in love, and yeah, we just kind of carried on from there. And then when I went to Manchester, again, started off my coaching journey, started off at a grassroots club, build up the experience, work through your badges. Luckily, whilst I was at Spurs, I was able to get my level 1 badges done and stuff. So just done my level 2. And then went into Chorley, which they're in the National League. I don't know if any of you know Chorley Football Club, up in Preston, up north. Yeah, so they're in the National League. Went through the academy there, worked my way up through to the 16s, the 21s, doing some goalkeeping coaching and some talent ID and recruitment for goalkeepers only. And from there, landed myself at a Premier League club, where my goalkeeping coaching started off, accelerated, went into the girls' game, bit of boys' game, and then from that exposure came into talent identification, done the scouting badges, done my goalkeeping badges, my UEFA B, So yeah, and here I am again, sat in a Premier League club. Can't complain, love it. A lot of voluntary hours in the early stages of the hustle of the grind, but
Mhm.
it was, it's kind of paid off. So I'm kind of happy where I am.
Love that. So you've scouted in at least 2 different regions, it's fair to say.
Yes, so up north and down south.
So I'm going to hit you with the question I know Deji's probably going to hit you later with, but we're always intrigued. North of the river, south of the river, south of England, north of England. What's the better one? Where's the better
That's
players? Where are the better players?
Do
Dan
you,
saying
do,
up
you,
north.
do you know what? I would listen. I'm a London boy, so I'd have to say south.
Okay, fair enough.
I'd have to say south. Yeah,
Timmy, can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Did you ever observe the most famous club in the Northwest? Or so that's not, let's say Manchester. Did you go to Fletcher Moss?
No, I did
No.
not.
Oh.
No, I did not. I did not. I was more sort of a bit closer to the Preston sides,
Okay.
like Bolton sides, Wigan sort of sides there.
So we call that Greater Manchester. Real Mancunians, we call it Greater Manchester. We don't accept that.
Yeah, well, yeah, Greater Manchester. There we go. Greater Manchester. That stuff actually confused me the first time I moved to Manchester, and it was like Greater Manchester, Manchester. I was like, what do you mean? Because obviously there's London and it's Greater London, right? And it spun my head, and I was like, geographically, I'm terrible anyway. So that just made my life a bit more difficult.
Brilliant. So clearly you loved the game. Clearly you always wanted to remain in the game. Did you know that you wanted to be a scout? Were you going to be a coach? Do you still do both? Like, what's the story for you?
That's a good question, because when I was playing, it was become a footballer or nothing, right? And you almost look at the coaches. For me, back in the day when I was playing anyway, we look at the coaches, and I never aspired to be anything like them. I just wanted to be that footballer. And when I actually stopped playing football, I stopped for, I think, 4 years or so. Didn't play for fun, didn't play as a hobby, didn't coach, nothing, just watched it as a fan. And COVID happened during the whole lockdown pandemic stuff. So just after we started coming out from that, where we had a little bit of contact with the little social distancing stuff, I got into football. That's where the coaching started for me. And that was at a local grassroots club where I was just like, I need to do something, just add a bit more, add a bit more activity to the spare time I had. And that's where it kind of kicked in. And from there, I started off as a goalkeeper coach naturally, because that's the position I played. And eventually through the years, then talent identification in terms of scouting sort of crept in into my career. But again, that started off with just recruitment for goalkeepers before I then decided to branch out and take on opportunities to do the entire thing.
Okay, so you see Dan has got Dan, aka Just a Dad. That should read Dan, aka Just a Goalkeeper Dad. Just so you know, just putting it out there. Quick plug there, guys. Listen, thank you for that, Timmy. That's a good understanding of where you're coming from to where you are now. And literally, I'm going to say to the guys, the floor is open. And now you're going to be bombarded with questions about how and what we should do to get our children into academy. And trust me, Timmy, we do proper think pieces here, right? But we've been told that people just want to know, how do I get my son to academy? So, guys, the floor is open.
100% and diving in, and I'll be, you can call it shameless, Timmy, but I'm here to plug my son, and that's the reason why I joined this podcast. So I'll hopefully be prepared. All right, question number 1. I think one of the main questions we want to know, and I hope you don't mind. Obviously, you're scouting at a Premier League club. Could you just give us a bit of insights into the kind of KPIs you were talking about? That there are expectations. What sort of targets do you have to work towards? Like, if you could just give us a sense.
So in terms of KPI, every club is different. So believe it or not, some clubs are actually very chilled, and some clubs, depends who your head of recruitment is, they actually demand a lot, or who the technical director is. For me personally, in terms of KPI, we are expected to produce I'll give a rough estimate. Let's say 12 reports per weekend, for example. That would be maybe 4 players. That's just an estimate, not to give the actual figure. So if you times that by 4, that's what, about 45 reports, maybe 50 reports in a month, right? Now, it depends again who your head of recruitment is. You might be really, really tackled down in terms of if you're not producing or meeting that KPI. Or if you're in a different club where it's just bringing reports where you feel like this player will be coming into our club, either on trials or either into our development centers or whatever it's called, because every club calls it different things, or pre-academy, for example. So they might just want you to do a report based on the players you actually believe might be coming in. Whereas with some other clubs, it's just a situation of, can you fill up that database as much as possible so we know we have covered this in terms of stats. We've covered about, I don't know, let's say 2,000 reports in the last 2-3 months. So yeah, that's in terms of KPI. That's what it kind of looks like. But there isn't any pressure in terms of you need to bring in a player that would sign within the season. That is just a bonus. That is lovely. You know, that makes it look good on you.
Okay, because that follows to my next question, because and that's good to know, because what I wanted to ask you was, how do you know they're a baller? For example, I think we were at a game yesterday, myself, Andrew, and Dan, and I believe there was an Arsenal scout there, but it's very hard to tell because some boys are playing out of position, or the manager's asking them to maybe not touch the ball or this and that. So how are you able to make an assessment to be sure that those players are solid? And also, you could speak to the managers. I can't understand, and I don't think any manager is going to give you a negative report on their players. So how do you kind of get through the weeds to know that you're onto something?
There's something I would have added to what I'm about to answer, but I'm gonna save it to the end just in case someone else might ask that question, right? So there's usually the 4-corner model with the FA. It's social, psychological, physical, technical, tactical. Right. So technical and tactical will go into one. I know I've just said 5, but that would go into one. And eventually, if you're new to scouting, that is sort of the 4 pillars that you sort of use, right? In terms of the physical, how does the player compete physically against the age mates? I'm sure obviously you've seen it where a players are really small and the players literally just really big. So in terms of physical, that's one consideration you'd look at. How they move. I think moving is very important. Now, it's like with any sport, you need to be agile, you need to be a good mover, sort of any sport that you do, really. So if someone struggles to move, that's your sign that that person is less likely a baller, in your terms. But yeah, so, and then obviously you move on to the technical. The technical is the foundation, really. You know, how they pass the ball, the speed of the ball, the weight of the pass, which will now lead into the tactical part of the decision making, where they position themselves. The next action in zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, sort of the final third of the pitch. And then you look at psychological, so how they react to adversity, challenges, how resilient they are, pretty much work rate and sort of those mental attributes that they have as well. And the social part, where, you know, how they communicate with the teammates or how they take on feedback. Are they coachable? Do they look interested? Do they look disinterested? Because there's so many times where you see a player who is a baller and, you know, massive impact in the game when they're bothered. And then the other half of it, or 3/4 of it, they look disinterested, just, you know, slouches, just really not moving. You know, once they get the ball, they're a bit more effective. So you kind of have to look at it, because if you're trying to bring a player into an elite environment, first of all, the player has to be coachable. If you can't be a coachable player, there's nothing else. You'd never make it, because what helps you become that first team professional footballer is your attitude to work hard and be coachable. Those 2 things. The rest of it then sort of falls underneath that. Does that answer the question a little bit? Don't know if I was beating around the bush there.
No, you're right. No, you're fine, and that's brilliant. My last question before I pass on, and I know this is like a whistle-stop tour. You say coachable. Now, for me, grassroots level, apart from my club, to be honest, I think most teams play the similar system. So, for example, it's 9-a-side, they're going to play 3 at the back, 4 midfield, 1 up top. If it's 7-a-side, it'll be 2 at the back, 3 midfield, 1 up top. So it's kind of, everyone's kind of doing that. Did you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't think there's any real coaching there, because everyone plays the kind of same system, get it out wide, get it in the box as quick as you can. There are some special people, at special teams like Ryan and others who.
I was going to take offense there. Yeah, I was going to just about
who sprinkle a little bit of their magic dust. But in the main, everyone kind of does the same thing. So how can you tell that they're coachable?
I suppose if you arrive early to the game, so you look at warm-up, for example, and you see how the warm-up gives you a lot of answers. Now, sometimes you can make it on time, but you see the warm-up. It depends how the player reacts in the warm-up. Do they engage to the coaches and instructions? In the game, do they listen to feedback well? So when when you coaches obviously screaming and shouting from the sidelines, do this or do that, how do they absorb that information? Can they action the instructions that you give to them? So you tell a player, for example, stay in the box or go wide or make the pitch wide, and the player after 5 minutes is still not doing that. That's not a coachable player, because for me that's simple instructions where you can't take it from the sidelines to then action it. So that shows your level of understanding and the level of your execution. So that, in hindsight, without obviously going into deep detail, that's how you spot a player, if a player is coachable. Now, when you attend training sessions, if you attend training sessions to sort of see more in terms of observation of that player, then obviously you'll be able to gather more, because that's more a comfortable environment. It's just focused on that player, and it's not a competitive environment. So to extend it, that's when you can see a bit more coachability traits. But in a game sense, it's just the taking on the feedback. And coaches, everyone screams on the sidelines. Even parents as well. Parents scream on the sidelines. That one is a whole different. That's a whole different topic.
Yeah, we'll come on to that.
But yeah, and then one question that you asked, I think you said with the managers about giving a report. Believe it or not, some managers who are exposed to scouts week in, week out, they actually do give honest opinions, because if you as a manager if you try and sell a player that's not really up there, just because I've come to ask you about that player, what would happen is you actually block the pathway for other players if you actually do have that start. Because whatever you tell me, I would trust you as a qualified coach, and I'll trust you as a professional in the game to give me your honest opinion. So if you try to be biased just because you want to push a player, or you're excited with the fact that you're speaking of a scout, I just wouldn't come back to ask you, because for me, I've lost that trust that I had in you, and I've lost the confidence to believe you have the right ability to judge a player.
Fair. No, thank you.
I'm just going to jump in there. Obviously, I know you had a couple of questions. I just want to focus on that last point, because that was one of my questions there, Timi. So I guess my question is all about debunking the myths, or so-called myths, around scouts and scouting. So on that last point, is it true then that scouts try to, should do, or do have relationship with coaches based on that rapport that you start off with? If a coach gives you an honest opinion, honest feedback, you believe you can trust them, then you believe that you can maybe lean on them to understand more about their players and more about players in the league. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely. That I would say that's true, from my experience anyway. Because I feel like it's very important, you as the coach or as the manager or as a club, to be honest. And honesty is the foundation of building a relationship. And if you fail to do that, it would just affect the relationship in the future, even if you had a player who's now exceptional. And word goes around quickly. In football, it's a small industry, but at the same time, it's a big industry. Scouts know each other. So word will go around about your club. Now, if you're a club who produces players, you've produced one player, right? And the player's gone on to sign, or the player's on trials. Me as a scout, I'll speak to obviously other scouts during conversations when obviously we'll meet up, and oh, my light's just gone off. We speak, and obviously it's just a situation of, right, this person, this coach told me about this player. Actually, he's a really good coach. They know what they're talking about. They know the stuff. They know the environment, and you sort of build that relationship from there. And before you know it, you've got more scouts coming in to different games. You're now players are now interested in coming into your club just because of that reason. The club makes more money through subscriptions, and so it's it's a cycle. It's a chain of effect.
Nice. You know what? The information is rich to me. It's interesting because I came across your page maybe in the last 3 to 4 weeks, and I was like, we need to get this guy on the pod. And I like the way you're adding to the shorts because they're like 30 seconds, isn't it? But I think the information is quite rich. I did slide into the DMs. Maybe you thought I was trying to get my kid scouted. I wasn't. It said the powers that be got you on, so that's all good.
Thank you.
What I was going to say. So I've got a few questions, but first question is, so your thing is dream big, go pro, yeah?
Yeah.
Which I like. I like that strapline. What I want to ask about that is, do you think that maybe there's a bit of maybe a step too far from reality with some of these dreams, or would you suggest parents and players dream big? And sorry if I can just add to that.
Yeah.
If we are to dream big, what does that need to be grounded in as well for that to become a reality?
I suppose to achieve anything, you need to have a dream, right? When I started my channel, obviously I had a dream, and my dream is to reach out to as much people as possible, parents, coaches, and actual footballers themselves. And now, if you dream small, the thing is, if you fall off that ladder, you're pretty much not going to achieve anything on your dream. The bigger you dream, and even if you don't achieve that big dream and you fall off, you still would achieve something in that depth of that dream. And again, the GoPro part of it is to push and obviously encourage everyone who obviously is aspiring to be a professional footballer to go pro. And idea of young players these days is to be a professional footballer, I have to be in the Premier League. I have to be in Liga. I have to be in one of the top Premier Leagues, but in the top leagues in the world. But that's not the case because there are a lot of players abroad. In Finland, for example, a Finland player is a professional footballer. Just because they're not known does not mean they're not a professional. So for me, in terms of that dream big, is dream big and have aspirations to be whatever you want to be. If it's the best football in the world, and if you don't achieve that, you still might come short, but you still might come short and become a professional footballer. So that's what I kind of mean in terms of dream big. And for parents, you got to dream big for your child because you are your child's biggest fan. So if you can't be that biggest fan, then your child is pretty much lost before they've even started. So that support network is important. And again, same thing with coaches and clubs, that support network with whatever the child wants to achieve within reason, obviously. It's just to have that dream there.
Yeah.
I hope that kind of made sense a little bit.
It does. The within reason piece was quite interesting actually. But yeah, we have to have visions and we need to dream. So certainly, I like what you're trying to do. I love the content that you're putting out there. What I wanted to ask is regarding, you speak about consistency.
Yeah.
Within some of the shorts that you've done, and I just wanted to understand what age are you looking at that consistency from? So I'll give you an example. So I had a boy in a team who's that signed for Tottenham last season. So under 9s he went in, and he was consistent from under 6. That boy would turn up. He would do the pre-academy circuit all week. He'll play his games on a Saturday, and he's turning up on a Sunday, and he's just laying it down like every week. You're not going to get less than a 7 or 8 out of him, yeah. But some kids, 9, 10, 11, maybe they're not as consistent at that age. And I'm just trying to understand from your perspective, when are you looking for that consistency to come in? Are they sort of outliers, those kids that are just consistent from young? Or as a scout, are you saying he needs to be delivering all the time, basically?
I'll give you 2 perspectives. So the first one is as a scout. So from my perspective, in terms of consistency, is I turn up to a game, and what I expect is the same level of consistency. Now, that consistency might not be 100% due to different factors. It might be a rainy day. You might be playing on a muddy pitch that's got bubbles. Now, that context also might change. It might be a rainy day and you might be playing on an AstroTurf. So the expectations will change a little bit. So the error for margin kind of narrows when it's on AstroTurf compared to a grass. So consistency would look like, are you passing the ball with the right speed consistently? Are you using the right weight of pass? Are you in the right position? More often than not. Sometimes, yes, it might happen. You might get dragged out. That's football. That's normal. But if you're showing a lot of signs of not understanding the tactical, again, depends on age. So probably from 12 plus for this. If you're showing the signs of not understanding the tactical nuances for that role or position you're playing, then for me, that shows you don't really understand what you're doing, or you've not been coached well, then which obviously reduces your consistency and your output. So it's just being consistent in those things, doing the small things at a high level, basically, like the passes, asking for the ball, your tackles, your body shape when you're defending for a goalkeeper, your diving technique, how you catch the ball, a lot of technical attributes, basically doing that at a high level.
Okay, so you're like, if you're there on the day, you're like, can they be consistent across that game and sort of deliver those actions that you're looking for?
Yeah,
okay, that's quite interesting. Just feeding into that.
yeah. The second thing is, so that's the perspective from my view as a scout. The second thing would be from the club's perspective. So exactly what you said, being in a pre-academy gives you a 7 or 8 in every game, right? You as a parent or a bystander, you might be looking at that thinking, right, this player is top notch. But the thing is, at the end of the season, you then find out as a parent, oh, your child is at risk of being deregistered or released, right? And everyone is like all confused. The thing is, yes, the child might be doing a 7 out of 8, but a 7 out of 8 is not impacting the team. The 7 out of 8 is impacting more to the individual than the team. So again, goes back to the point what I mentioned about coachability. So how coachable are they? So there might be instructions or targets that's set for that player, and it might not just fit into the philosophy of the club if the player is not meeting those targets. And again, it might get to a situation where it's like, right, that player or that child is not consistent because they failed to do this, failed to do that, failed to do this and different things. And then you're like, oh, how does that child get released or deregistered? You know, a club's not crazy. They wouldn't just obviously let go of players who they feel is an asset to them. You know, there's a lot of investment that's gone into each player. So again, in terms of consistency, it is being coachable and taking actions and feedback and delivering it. If that makes sense a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's helpful for the audience listening. Just have that context. I'll just squeeze one last one out. So for the players that are within the grassroots settings, let's talk about the foundation phase. So probably got boys in academies that are doing anywhere between 4.5, 6 hours training with their clubs. When you speak about contact hours outside of an academy, what might that look like, just to build that consistency? Are we talking group sessions, one-to-ones? Would you suggest that it solely needs to be football? So the example that I'll use is yesterday. My boy, I took him out for a 5K in the park run. We did that. To my mind, that is contact hours, just in a different context away from football. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on trying to bridge that gap with the boys and girls that are in academy settings?
How old is your boy?
He's 8 at the moment.
He's 8. Okay. So exactly what you said. Contact time is not just football. Contact with the football only. So it includes your physical, so your strength and conditioning. Again, obviously going for runs, or anything with the football, or going to the gym and doing extra work. So it's just adding those hours, because the thing is, and this is mainly more for parents, right? If your child wants to be, or you want your child to be a professional footballer or get into a professional academy, what you need to understand is the levels and the dedication and the care and support that players in academy receive is going to be 10 times more than what a player in a grassroots level would receive. So you as a parent, your child is too young to understand and appreciate the things that they need to do because it's just too little. So you as a parent need to be able to support and give into that child and provide for that child in terms of, right, this is what you need to do. And that might be a bit of strength and conditioning. And strength and conditioning in the gym, we're not saying the child should go in there doing dumbbells, trying to lift weights and everything like that. It's just doing the right things in terms of explosive exercises in the gym. Again, you can use YouTube to access all these things to then obviously strengthen and support the child's growth. Contact time in terms of football could be just going to the park, doing 20-yard kicks up and down, because that is technical stuff. You're just kicking with your child in the park. So it's the little things. It could even be basketball, because basketball or any other sports, they have different movements that would sort of translate and which can be transferred into football. So contact time, that's what that kind of means. It doesn't just have to be football, as you said, you're spot on with that. It doesn't just have to be football. So all of that comes with contact time. And just think about it in this way: whatever footballers are doing in academies, can I try and replica close enough and feed that into my child a little bit? Might not be in terms of professionalism, be exact or spot on, but that's why we have access to YouTube, where you can utilize people's ideas and content to provide for your child. So when your child does hit that level, your child is ready. Because if you look at a child who's 14, for example, a 14-year-old academy player playing in a Cat 1 academy or Cat 2, been in the system for ages, miles ahead. And if your child from grassroots who's 14 has this raw talent, and we're like, right, okay, we feel like this child can come in and make a difference, your child needs to be ready. But your child will never be ready if they don't have all these extra support outside before that moment, except your child is just this naturally missed late developer that's been gifted with this talent of striking a ball from like 30 yards that goes in the net. But apart from that, you need to support that child. And you look at ages from foundation phases, for example, like pre-academy to sort of 11 years old. To support that child, it would be less physical stuff in terms of maybe strength and conditioning. It'd be a lot of them moving and adjusting the body and changing shapes, and a lot of footwork, because there's a lot of technical foundation that's really important for that age group. So again, small groups that you mentioned, or private one-to-one sessions will be ideally appreciated for building that technical foundation for like the foundation and phase group or pre-academy.
Yeah, nice, and I appreciate that, Timmy. Let me pass over to Danny's itching to go.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for all that great feedback and stuff. As parents, we have these conversations at the weekend on the phone, in group WhatsApp groups, on the side of the pitch. Do you honestly feel though that scouting at this current time are actually looking at potential or what's actually effective right now? Because I think that's a lot of the conversations and the thoughts and thought behind a lot of parents, that a lot of clubs don't actually are not looking at potential, what's going further on. It's more like how effective they right now.
Yeah. I was smiling as you said that question. Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I suppose the way to look at it is football is a matter of opinions, and what does potential look like to you, and what does potential look like to the club? So I think that's where sometimes there's a bit of a misunderstanding, because I could say to you that kid has potential, and you might turn around and look at that kid and say, no, I don't see any potential in there. So again, it's a matter of opinions. And in terms of weighting, if you look at it this way, you have a business, right? Let's say Premier League club. Let's use Wolves, for example, right? Wolves, Premier League club, owner of the business, first team makes a lot of money. You take that chunk of money in terms of profit and you load it into the academy system. Now, you as a businessman, you're thinking, I need to see the results. Either, obviously, the academy assets, we need to sell them and make profits, or they need to be beneficial in terms of progression through the age groups into the first team. Those are the two ways. Now, if you're sitting down and waiting for a player to have potential, what you're doing is you keep waiting. Yes, you can invest your money and time in terms of coaches. But also what you're losing is space. You're losing the space that child is taking in your academy for another possibly stronger potential child to come in. So that's one thing that when I got into the professional game, I didn't realize the space in the academy is limited. There could be so many kids who want to get signed. I might have spotted a kid who's really talented, but there isn't space in the academy because there's just no space. So it's just a matter of waiting, and sometimes you can't always wait. So in terms of potential, again, going back to what I said, it depends what you see as potential. Different from what the club sees, different from what I see, different from what the coach sees, different from what the parent sees. And sometimes it's aligned. And when it's aligned, that's why you have the child progressing through different phases of the age groups. Does that kind of answer it a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it makes sense to me. It's just a question. Obviously, it wasn't so much for me. It's about our audience. I know they talk about this, and these questions for them to know. This question is going to be more in terms of my good friend Dej here, because I know he will appreciate this. Yeah, do you think we're producing better athletes or better footballers at this current time?
I think athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're producing better athletes, and the reason why is because you look at what are we producing for? We're producing for the Premier League. The Premier League is a very physical game. To be an athlete, the two combinations that's important: speed and power. That's what makes an athlete. So you need to have one of those. If you have power, then you could survive in the Premier League. You could be an average technical player, but your strength, your power, or maybe your speed. Adama Traore, for example, it's got no technical, nothing about him, in my personal opinion, but it's got the speed, it's got the power. That's how he's effective. That's why he's remained in the Premier League.
Sorry. Those thoughts are by Timi and Timi alone. I do not want to be sued by Adama Traore or his people. Sorry, Timi.
That's all right. So that's that in my opinion. So again, you have to look at the Premier League and what is the Premier League producing for? What is the Premier League player style like? And it's physical, so we have to try and produce athletes. So I think it's more athletic based.
Can I just sorry, Dan? Can I just add to that? Then I don't not wanting to steal your thunder. Are you, based on the information that you have, and Dan, you know you've triggered me on this one in a good way. Do you agree with that? Because I look at Spain, I look at Portugal, I look at Germany, I look at the way they go about their business. They clearly are producing talented players, and I feel like we're missing a trick. If what we're saying is Bernardo Silva wouldn't be professional today, he would be an IT software engineer. We're saying that Messi would be a software engineer. You know, these types of players who, Doku, do you know what I mean? Doku would be some sort of, I don't know, postman. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, what's your personal opinion? What side of the fence do you sit with this, to me? And then back to Dan. Sorry, Dan, I just had to elaborate further.
Yeah, no, that's a good question because I've had this conversation recently. And so those players abroad, right, on the smaller side of physicality, right, abroad, I think they spend more time, again, going back to what Dan was saying in terms of potential, they spend more time and a bit more patient to work on the player who's smaller in stature to utilize space. So if you're smaller in stature, you need to utilize space a bit more. You need to move the ball quicker. You need to find pockets of space quicker. And you need to be obviously technically gifted, which usually is the case. So when players are brought like that from abroad into the Premier League, what they have mastered and really learned is how to utilize space. And they're quick or explosive, or they're just technically really good. So if you transfer that into the Premier League, you've got two ways this could work. It could either really work, or it could just really fail where they struggle. And we've seen both before, haven't we? So you then shift that to bring that back to England or into the UK. When we scout grassroots players, for example, or we take players through our academy system, like I said before, we're building players for the Premier League. And what we are used to in this country is to build athletes, to produce power and speed. So that's what we are nurtured or sort of trained to scout for. In terms of the smaller players, yes, there will be smaller players in different academies, but then you find out small players often don't play centrally; they play on a wider part of the pitch. because essentially that is the engine, and that's the strongest part where you need your power, you need your speed to then obviously get the ball out wide. So sometimes you might have the small players you look at, I was just about to say a name which I can't say. But yeah, so you look at those sort of smaller profile players brought from abroad. They've been trained and brought up to utilize space. In England, it's quite the opposite. We sort of shift them out wide.
Fair. Thank you. Sorry, Dan. Thank you, Timmy. I think it's
No
spot on.
worries.
So I've got two. I'm gonna put two into one, Timmy. We jump into your world away from the scouting, more social media now. Yeah. So it's just like, do you think social media is actually helping young players, or is it creating unrealistic expectations on them? Because it's the exposure of social media, the persona of these Instagram coaches and everything else, and obviously now I guess you're adding to that in terms of what you give to the parents and young individuals that may watch your page. Okay, that's part one. So I'll shut down quickly, and we'll jump on more bias now. My son being a goalkeeper, you being a goalkeeper of expertise, do you feel that clubs utilize, inverted commas, specialized scouts that can look at goalkeepers? I have had conversations with parents in general that you get a scout that doesn't understand what a goalkeeper is, or what needs to be a goalkeeper. They see a tall boy and go, he must be a goalkeeper. Let's get him in. Let's give him a trial. In actual fact, these goalkeepers that have more attributes to be a real goalkeeper, inverted commas when I say real goalkeeper, than these big boys that just give opportunities based on their size.
Yeah, okay. Two very good questions. The first one, in terms of social media, I would say social media at the moment does a little bit more harm. And that's because obviously what we see online in terms of what people do, freestylers, what they achieve. As a young person, you feel like, wow, I've got to really do that. I've got to try and be like this or try and be like that. And I think it does more harm in the sense. But again, that comes down to obviously parents and what we expose our children to and how we can support them. My content and obviously what I try to produce and do is provide daily tips to support young players who are unsigned, or players who are signing to academies, just some tips on how to stay signed in an academy. So for me, I feel I'm trying to bring in that balance in terms of, right, just because you see someone continuously hitting it in the top corner and because they play for England, that does not mean that's what you have to do to get there. That is that person's special attribute. They can do it. They've been in the system for so long, had the right support, the strength and conditioning, the technical attributes, the right coaching by highly professional coaches. So my content is to support children who are unsigned, or youth footballers who are unsigned. But like I said, that's a very good question, and that obviously is a whole debate for like a whole another day in terms of, does it do more harm or does it have more support? And then in terms of the goalkeeping part of things, from my experience, the professional phase, so anything sort of 16, 17 plus, usually have a specific goalkeeping scout. It costs a lot to have one because that is someone's full-time job. And football in academy system do not pay as well because there isn't any profit in academy system. It's all first team football, right? So anything from 17 plus, usually there should be in a Cat 1 or Cat 2 academy, a specific goalkeeping team who does the goalkeeping recruitment. Now, anything below that, if you have a club who has a specific goalkeeping scout, that is fantastic. And that means there's budget there, or that means the recruitment strategy is just really nailed onto the T, and the strategy is just excellent. Usually from my experience as a goalkeeper coach and a scout, I sort of do double roles. So in terms of goalkeeping, anything goalkeeping specific at my club, I would sort of support in terms of the recruitment on that side. So like today, for example, I went to somewhere northwest London today to look at a goalkeeper, and that is not my region that I cover. I was obviously given that assignment because of my background, so I'm sort of the goalkeeping expertise. And you are right, sometimes scouts will look at goalkeepers and not and miss them because it's not where the eye goes to naturally. And sometimes scouts will look at goalkeepers who make shots, who make saves and stuff during a game, and I might look at a goalkeeper and say, no, this is just not the right fit, because the eye that I look at it is a different holistic view in terms of what I put together, because obviously being in the goalkeeping department. So yes, that is correct. Goalkeepers can get missed easily. Again, looking at profiles, what does the profile of a goalkeeper look like? And that is a very, very touchy one, because sometimes parents, you might look at your child and your child might have that great movement around the goal, explosive, makes a save, but then your child is literally just the average height across the whole team in their group. So as a scout, naturally you'd be drawn to a keeper who's tall, taller than the age group, taller than mates in the team as well. So naturally, as a scout, you'd be drawn to that. And again, you have that bias just because they're tall and they probably make 2-3 saves. As a scout who's not really exposed into the goalkeeping nuances, you might just think, right, that's a good shot stopper. So yes, you do have goalkeepers who are often missed. Does that answer the question a bit?
And it does. We can delve into a lot more, but we'll leave it there because we're short. I get it. Yeah.
Timi, sorry. My next question may determine my following question. Will you come back on? Because I notice we're running short on time, and I think we've got loads more questions for you, and the audience will have loads more questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine.
All right, brilliant. Okay, so against my better judgment, I'm going to ask the bundler to jump in with his 2 questions, and then I will close with a couple of my own, because I know you're short for time. Bundler, over to you.
Andrew, you're too kind. Quick one. Timi, thank you. So the 2 questions are, I often see that there's some kids who maybe they're not playing the right way. Do you believe that the academy can kind of address the errors, or do the kids need to have a good grassroots coach who would then give them the foundation to go into? That's the first question. And then the second one is, can scouts influence coaches? For example, are you able to provide pushback to say, nah, this is this, in my opinion, there is a player here. I know you want speed and power, but this person's got technical prowess and IQ. Are you able to provide pushback and it be respected? That's it.
Yeah. Can you just expand on on the first question where you said if the child or player is not playing the right way?
Yeah, I'm guessing the question really is, do you need a good grassroots coach for the child, or can a parent say to themselves or have the belief that they don't need to have a good grassroots coach? All we need to do is do enough to get into the academy, and whatever they need to refine and sort out, the academy can sort it out? Or would you say actually start strong, find a good grassroots coach who will give your child the right foundation, and then that will give them, a better chance of being able to stay in? I guess that's what I was kind of leaning towards. Yeah,
I would say definitely need a good grassroots coach, and that goes down to what team your child is playing for. So you as a parent, obviously we're all into football, we know a bit about football, we probably play football. You would have an honest answer to yourself where you look at your child and say, my child is not good enough, or damn, like my child has got something here, they've got real talent. And now that goes back to what I said at the start. No one's actually asked that question today, which is funny enough. So in terms of what grassroots level does your child play at? And there's the league, but then there's different divisions in the league. So if your child is playing in the top division, the chances are the coach who's coaching that top division, the chances are the coach who's coaching that division is a good coach. Might have a level 1, most likely have a level 2, right? They really have a deep love for the game. The club who's put that coach there has probably put the best coach there because that's the best group and that's the best sort of team. Now, you come down 4 divisions lower, you're less likely going to see any scouts there. I'll be honest with you. There's 95% chance you would not see a scout there, except we'll come into what your target player. So again, it kind of goes down there. So I think the foundation of having a good grassroots coach is super important. Because like I said, if the top, you probably have 2 coaches. You go down to Division 4, there's probably an 18-year-old who's just started his journey, who's just learning, doing voluntary work, 18-year-old doing Division 4. The referee is another 16-year-old who's got no experience. The quality of facilities that you get exposed to is not as great as someone who's playing in Division 1, for example. And that's because that is done for a reason. The club is, and obviously football is trying to push those players who have the strong opportunity to take it to the next level. They're trying to push them. So again, it comes down to obviously that question. So I think that's super important.
Cool.
And then in terms of the second question, in terms of a scout trying to sort of convince the coach that there is talent here. Stop me, by the way, if I'm not answering that question properly. Just might have skipped in my head, but I think I've got it. I think as a scout, yes, you can convince a coach. At the end of the day, you might have the worst player. The player who you think is the worst player in your team, I might walk in and say, that's the player I want. And that might be because the club I work for might want that profile of a player. They might want what you feel is just basic for you. That's what we might need at that moment. So it might just be a situation of, yes, you come to me and say, that's the worst player on the pitch. Like, I don't think he's ready. I think you should be looking at this person or that person. And I'm like, yeah, they're great, but in my club, we've already got 3 or 4 players like that. That does not add any value to us. And that player does not come in to challenge any of our players. So what is the point? So I think, yes, you can have that back and forth, and you definitely can influence. Does that answer the question, right? Or have I missed it?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Timi, listen, thank you very much. I've not asked any questions on this pod, really. So be warned, the next time you come on, you won't hear anything from anybody else. It's just going to be me. No, I'm joking. No, it's all good. It's all good. We're going to get you back on. Like I said, this series is called the Scouting Corner, and you're going to be a regular guest on it by the sounds of it. You speak so well. We do have some quickfire questions that we always ask our guests. The first one is, and this, I warn you, may invalidate everything you've just said. We need to know, who is your GOAT?
Oh, I'll say Leo Messi.
Okay, you're valid. You're valid, sir. Your second, some people get it wrong. Your second question, quickfire, is you touched on the 4-corner model earlier on in the conversation. So for the foundation phase, could you put a percentage value on each corner? And that means for a good foundation player in an academy, what percentage would you put on each corner for them needing to have, if that makes sense?
Yeah, psychological, I would probably say is the highest. So I'd probably give that a solid 40%.
Yeah.
Because there are times it's just not going to go your way. There are times where you're just going to have to really bounce back and find a way through. And I think that's not something you can easily coach. That comes naturally to most people. So I think that weighs the heaviest for me. And then I'd say the rest of them are quite even. So in terms of social, your social, technical, tactical, and what's the other one now? Can't remember. My brain's gone blank.
Psychological, technical, tactical, social, physical.
Physical, that's it. Physical, yeah. Yes. I think all of that are fairly equal with, so obviously if I said 40%, 60 divided by the rest. I think psychological is the most important one. Technical and tactical. Tactical, you will get taught that. No one expects a foundation child to know it all. Technical, you would get support with that because you'd have breakout sessions in terms of IDPs. Social, it's great, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have it. You might just be an introvert. But, a very big but, there is a stage in your career when you hit that professional development phase. If you are still there, you're really going to have to push that social. You're going to have to find a way, because you cannot go into that age bracket and be quiet. It limits you becoming that professional footballer. So that's why I said it's fairly equal, and I don't want to just put a number in it based on the age group. So, and then physical, it's equal because you can get bigger. You can, as you grow older, you can get stronger. You can eat a bit more food, put on a bit more weight, build a bit more strength. But psychological is the most important one.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm going to put that down as 40, 20, 20, 20 for now. But I get your point, re-social as well later on. And it all changes, right? It will change for each level. So this is a question that we don't normally ask, but I'm going to ask you because we're going to ask it for all our guests on the academy or the scouting corner. You've had a busy weekend.
Yeah.
What have you seen a magic moment or something you just really loved this weekend? And in addition to that, which area this weekend that you scouted showed you the most talent?
So in terms of area, I am more Hearts and North based. So North London and Hearts based. That's the region I kind of cover. The magic sort of moment today was, so this team actually lost. And there's a centre half losing. I think the score was 3-0 down at this point. Solid centre half, right? Gone up for a free kick. He's taken a free kick, by the way. He's gone to take it. I think it's about 30, maximum 30 yards. Let's say 28, 27, 30 yards out from goal. Put the ball down, muddy pitch, raining, 3-0 up the other team. Put the ball down, whipped it. The ball just floated in the air. It was just weird. It was just floated in the air. I just landed in the top corner, and the goalkeeper was just trying to scramble to get it. And I think that for me, that was literally a magic moment, because that obviously spiraled the comeback. And then it became 3-2, and then his game changed, became more effective, and it was just from there. And at this moment, I'm pressing and chasing the deal for that player. So, but yeah, so that, I think that's the magic moment for me. They lost the game anyway, 5-3, or no, 5-2 in the end. But yeah, that's the magic moment for me.
Thank you, brilliant. And usually we ask at this point a question, which is, can you recommend somebody else to come on this pod? But I'm not going to ask you that question this week, because the person we want to get back on the pod is you. So we'll leave it there. But can you give us your socials, because your Instagram and sounds like your TikTok is popping. So do you want to share those with everyone, please?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I actually have to remember it now. So on Instagram, I am Timi Sossa. So it's TIMI_SOSSA. And on TikTok, it's the same thing without the underscore, I believe.
Timi will be back on at some point this year. I can guarantee it, because I've got some questions I need to ask you, Timi. But guys, listen, if you're still locked on now, you've been treated to a magnificent hour with one of our Premier League Academy scouts, Timi Sossa. I need you to tell a friend, because we know you are true to this. But please, please, please introduce somebody who is new to this, okay? And if you're still locked on and you haven't subscribed, shame on you. Please hit that subscribe button, hit that like, hit the notification, and please leave a comment. Timi has given you gold today. Real gems. Precious, precious commodity. So please, please leave a comment, show your appreciation. And we are thankful for you listening, but more importantly, for Timi coming on today. We've been Ball at All Cost. He's been Timi, and we are out.
Thank you very much.